My name is Kareem El-Ghayesh. I am the owner of KG BBQ in Austin, and today I'm making our perfect version of the smoked pork ribs. KG BBQ is the perfect marriage of Egyptian street food and Texas barbecue. There's quite a few factors that make a great pork rib. There's a really fine line between undercooking and overcooking. You want to have a nice little bend, a nice relaxation in the rack of pork, but you also don't want it to fall apart. The second component is the flavor. What makes our pomegranate glazed pork ribs so unique is how familiar it looks when you go and eat it, but the flavors are way different. This is the rack of pork ribs. I like to look at two things. The marbling is number one. So the marbling is the intramuscular fats that you see inside the fibers of the meat, and that really just gives you an edge. You start with a product that is just gonna be more juicy than any other product. The second thing is the size and the thickness of the rack. I like to cook, the thicker, bigger racks, they do tend to take a little bit longer time, but they're more forgiving when you cook them. The first thing I'm gonna do is just open this up and get it trimmed. I wanna start with my 6-inch boning knife. This is the most common knife that I use. I like to use a honing steel to kind of keep the blade aligned. It makes it feel a lot sharper. I have a meat hand and a clean hand. So I always handle all my spices, my knife and everything with the meatless hand. And that's how you kind of stay clean. The reason why we trim proteins is they're not necessarily shaped in the way that they would cook the most evenly. We just kind of want to trim off the excess parts and remove the breastbone. One of my favorite butcher terms is that you want to make the ribs knifeable. Knifeable means that you can cut through it with a knife. There's a lot of super thin edges here. I just want to come in and square it off. I do the same thing when I'm smoking racks of lamb as well. Let's talk about the membrane here. If your rack is undercooked, the membrane will be tough and it's not gonna be a pleasant bite or chew. But if your rack is overcooked, the membrane in fact helps keep it together. But if you cook it perfectly, you're not gonna worry about it. I'm going to remove the membrane and just show you how to do it. So you wanna get a paper towel. So I'm gonna come in with this. Now this rack is ready to season. You need two components to make your rack of pork ribs. Number one is the rub, two is the sauce. Now we're gonna make our spice rub. We're gonna start by combining our ingredients. You wanna use kosher salt and you wanna use pre-ground coarse black pepper. The reason why we use coarse spices is to create the crispy bark. If you use finer spices, the salt will start to pull out the moisture and dissolve all the spices, and it's gonna have more of a shiny, glossy finish. It's not gonna have this rigid texture to it. Granulated garlic. This SPG, salt, pepper, garlic, very common in the barbecue world. To make my rub a little bit more unique, I like to add a little bit of Greek oregano. I like to use the more coarse grind on the oregano. For the unique ingredients that go and make this pork ribs more of a staple, and this is really what surprises people, we add ground coriander. Coriander is a very common spice in Egyptian cuisine. Last but not least is ground sumac. Sumac is a dried berry native to the Middle East. We have sumac here in Texas, but I don't advise that you eat it because sometimes it's poisonous. I learned that recently. This will add a little bit of tanginess and a little bit of sour zestiness to the rack of pork ribs, which is super unique. You don't really see that. Every pork rib that you get in Texas or in the barbecue world is very much on the sweet forward. We're gonna go in and mix this spice rub, which I highly recommend to let the rack sit in the rub for a little bit. And the nice thing about letting it sit in the rub is that you're pulling out the moisture surface and that is evaporating, and you're gonna have a drier surface, which means a crispier bark. Now we'll make the pomegranate barbecue sauce. Another main reason why our ribs are special. I love the kind of messy rib. It's like, you don't really eat a good rib if you're not licking your fingers after that. Here in Central Texas, we do a ketchup-based sauce, which is my preferred style as well. So we're gonna start with a base of ketchup. To that, we're gonna add pomegranate juice. It's an antioxidant. I love drinking it at home with sparkling water. I love putting it in cocktails. It has this beautiful tartness to it. We have kosher salt. We have granulated onion, granulated garlic, also more sumac. We have cumin and cinnamon. Now for a little bit of heat, we're gonna add a little bit of sriracha. Now we're gonna add Worcestershire sauce. I hope I said it right this time. Dijon mustard, brown sugar. We got black pepper. We have apple cider vinegar. A lot of these ingredients you see in classic Texas-style barbecue sauces. Last but not least is the pomegranate molasses. Pomegranate molasses is not just straight up sweet sugar. It does add sweetness, but it gives you this nice balance of tangy as well. We're just gonna mix it and let it kind of come up to a simmer. I really don't wanna cook it that much. I just want all the ingredients to combine and come together. Simmer it for about 5 to 10 minutes and it should be all done. When we're smoking barbecue, we always like to use a binder or a slather. It's more commonly referred to as a slather here in Texas. It's pretty much an adhesive. You're adding a layer of a sauce or something that is moist to help your dry rub to stick. I do actually like to use sriracha. It adds a heat, adds flavor, adds color to the pork ribs, which is more required when you're cooking pork compared to lamb or beef. You can just get away with salting a ribeye or salting a lamb chop. But if you just salt a pork chop, it's not gonna be as good. And that is why I chose to use a little bit of more of a flavor in my slather. Now we're gonna go in with the spice rub. I'm using one of these classic shakers. They're great for spice rubs. When you are seasoning with this shaker, it's a lot more even than using your hand. And as you pick it up, you can see nothing falls down of it. It's really because of that slather, because of the adhesive that we applied to it. Flip and repeat what we've done. And it's all ready. I highly recommend that you let this sit for a few hours in your fridge. If you smoke something that is cold, you allow for more time for bark development, for smoke absorption. Smoke, in fact, adheres better to surfaces that are cold. Now we're out here at the smoker trailer. And before I put the pork ribs on the smoker, I just want to make sure my fire is going well. So open here, we use post oak. It's a blessing of Central Texas. It's in high abundance. Kind of break down my fire and reset it. First of all, you want to pick the right wood. It should be hardwood. It should be seasoned. That means it should have been cut and sat for at least a year. So it's nice and dry. And when you throw it in, you want to see it burning. You want to see flames, just like that. If you put in wood that is too green or too wet or not seasoned yet, it's going to become extremely smoky. It's not going to combust. It's not going to burn. We're looking to smoke at about 250 to 275. We do tend to cook on the higher end, 275 more, because we have one smoker at this point and we cook kind of everything on it. And we open and close all the time. So we try to keep it hot. This is a 1,000-gallon propane tank that has been recycled and welded to another tank that is the firebox. And over here we have the smokestack or the chimney. And these are the main three components that you see in any smoker. We're gonna go ahead and open this door right here. We're gonna add our rack of pork ribs here on the top shelf. This rack is gonna go in the smoker for about 3 hours. The smoker is running at 275 right now. Pork ribs can be a little finicky to cook sometimes. The challenging thing about smoking a perfect rack of pork ribs is probably that fine line of knowing when to pull it, when it's ready. If you pull it too early, you're gonna have an unpleasant chewy bite that is tough and is not tender. If you pull it too late, it's gonna be too dry. It's gonna be too crumbly, too soft. All right, we'll see you later. All right, the main visual that you're looking for is the nice color, because after you wrap, you do not develop any more color. So I wanna open the rack and I wanna see this beautiful, dark, reddish, mahogany colored. I also don't wanna see any bone pulling away. The bone pulling away on the rack of ribs means that it's getting close to be done. So that's a good sign here that I'm opening and getting to wrap before the rack is done. The main reason we wrap as well is because you wanna steam it a little bit. You wanna tenderize the rack. If you cook it all the way unwrapped, a lot of times you end up drying it. So now we're gonna lay it right here on this foil. Shiny side, inside or outside, doesn't matter. I was so curious at some point that I had to look it up. Wrap it nice and tightly, and this is gonna go back to the smoker for about another hour and a half until it gets tender. It's been about an hour, so let's go and check on this. I'm gonna pick this rack up without really having to unwrap it or anything. There's ways you can know where it's at, and that's really by the bend. So you guys can see it is bending a little bit more, but I can feel that it's not too soft. So this is what you're looking for. If you go and pick up the rack and it feels too soft and it feels like it's breaking up, that's unfortunately it's overcooked. If you go and pick it up and it feels so tense and firm, that's undercooked. So you want to keep practicing until you get that right doneness. The right doneness is when you bite on the rib and it doesn't just slide all of it in your mouth. A lot of the fat is rendered and now it's kind of braising and steaming in it as well. And this rack is ready to glaze. We're gonna take it out of the foil, put it back on the smoker. With the sauce that we made earlier, we like to put it in these, fancy chef bottles here. You can have a brush or something on here, but I like to glaze on the heavier side and just make sure everything is nice and coated. This sauce is a little bit thin in consistency by design to make it also work as a glaze. You can see how it looks like now. A nice, even layer, not too thin, not too thick of a layer of barbecue sauce. We're gonna let this cook for like 10 minutes at the most. Now it's gonna look a lot darker, a lot more caramelized, and this flavor is gonna pop when you cut the ribs and taste them. Now the pork ribs have been glazed for about 10 minutes or so. We pulled them and now they're resting in the hot box right here. This is a temperature, humidity control device that keeps your meat hot. You can proof bread in this. There's a lot of beautiful uses you can use this equipment. Let's see how this looks like. We've cooked a few racks here today for service, so they look beautiful. Nice glaze here. It's not too dry. I don't like to pull them when they are fully caramelized and already dry in the surface. I like to maintain a little bit of that kind of wet moisture on the surface. If you have this pull, the meat is pulling away from the bone about, half an inch or so. That's a very good indicator that your ribs are in a good place. We still see that bend. It's not cracking open. If it cracks open or breaks up, it's definitely an overcooked rack. But these look great. We want to go in and pour the rest of that sauce over the rib. Let's go ahead and cut them. The tricky part with the rack of pork is that the bones will run different directions. If you flip the rack, you have a lot more vision where the bones are running and it's a lot easier. I personally don't like to do that, or you can do that in the beginning, but eventually you want to cut when the rack is sitting up like that so that you're not ruining the presentation side of the rack. Your knife should go in really easily. If you're hitting a bone, stop what you're doing and just go in a different angle. Nice pull from the bone. I can feel it's very tender, but it's not falling apart. The moisture is not gushing out of it. It's not escaping too quickly. That means it's well rested. It's a beautiful cook. And the part where you get to be creative and the part where you get to make art is how your food looks. I just love taking the time to make the food look beautiful and pretty and stunning, so that when I cook a spread, I want, people to absorb the visuals of it first before they even dive into the flavors and eat it. We're gonna now dust it with some za'atar. Za'atar is a Lebanese spice blend. It doesn't have salt in it. It gives you a nice earthy, herby flavor. It has sesame seed. So it gives a nice texture and a beautiful look to the rib as well. That's also one of the reasons why I like my rib to kind of have this moist surface, so that the za'atar can stick on it. And there's a little bit of the barbecue sauce that we made earlier for dipping. Add the sumac onions on the tray as well. Last but not least, I like to sprinkle a few pomegranate seeds on top. I like to treat the people that order big trays with some nice little flags, only at KG BBQ, where Egypt meets Texas. So I'm gonna give this a try. Beautiful. It comes right off the bone. It's not overcooked, it's not too dry. Nice tang. Cheers, y'all. Come see me in Austin and get some Egyptian barbecue.